Beloved students of love's eternal presence, Akasha is with you through the live stream of your messenger. And I thank you for your presence here at class. And through you, I extend my greater love to the entire student body around the world. God bless all of you. We are recently back visiting some of our students in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and students too from other areas came in as well. A retreat with the son and I and the world teacher, beloved Lito, and the First Lady Nada. And it was a wonderful weekend. And students stood forth and interacted with the masters. The questions were wonderful. I thank all of you for the continued studies that each of you are to embrace. As spoken recently in classes, an unparalleled and unprecedented opportunity is before this student body. Throughout the centuries of time, while the peoples of earth forgot who they are, while the peoples of earth set aside their spiritual nature, and by superstitious beliefs in the mind, fear enshrined in the emotional bodies, the people of earth have dreamed a dream of separation. And over millions of years, that separation has become entrenched within the consciousness that they have lived, and that separation has pulled down the consciousness of the people. And instead of living in a consciousness of life, of light, of love, of genius, of intelligence, of power, of joy, of grace, of abundance, of wellness, and on, the people of earth have come to live through such discord. The people of earth, in order to bring an end to lives that filled with such tragedy, the people of earth had to invent the death of their physical garments, so they could come back again and again and again and again and try again and try again. And the tragedy of tragedies was the people of earth forgot what they were trying again to achieve. And thus, before all of you is a path and participation in a student body that, unlike all spiritual paths that have sought the light in the past, this spiritual body and many spiritual groups around the world are receiving the attention of the spiritual hierarchy. And the spiritual hierarchy is determining, based on the education, based on the beliefs, based on the evolution of those various spiritual groups around the world, the spiritual hierarchy, the angelic host, the ascended host, great cosmic beings, including the solar logos, are determining, have determined, the ways that they who live in the greater realms of this solar system, those great beings who live in systems of worlds far advanced the earth, have now determined the kind of intervention, have now determined how much power can be released to each spiritual group and those embodied in those groups, how much assistance can be given. And ultimately, can the power to break the spell of lower consciousness, the spell of separation, the power to break through that spell, to have enough force of such cosmic light and irresistible amounts of divine love that can just, from the light's point of view, show you the way and propel you that way, and with the love be that magnetic force that lifts you and lifts you and lifts you back into what we call the natural consciousness. But due to what has happened to the people of earth, we must identify as the higher consciousness. There is a secret passage in the New Testament. Actually, it is a very, very short sentence. And very few understand that it is a metaphor for something greater. As Jesus the Christ resurrected from the tomb of Arimathea, and then met a few followers and quickly made himself invisible to go visit his family. Some of the disciples came to the tomb. An angel stood at the side of the tomb, and the angel said, "Why do you look there? Know you not he is risen?" Why do you look there? Why do you look in the tomb? He is risen. The divine self can no longer be found in the tomb of human creation. The divine self has resurrected. And if you look amongst human creation, you will not find him there until he so chooses to avail himself. This is your own future. The spiritual hierarchy has named my dispensation, which aligns with Saint Germain's and Jesus the Christ, to be that dispensation that is to be given every assistance from the Orion system of worlds. Every assistance, for you must understand that so too you have planets and solar systems, and you have Milky Ways, and you have galaxies. And when you have a system such as the Orion system, and some have spoken of the unusual pink atmospheres in these planets that radiate a pink hue upon the planet that makes the planet seem to be pink itself. What is this hue from? What is this pink love? It is the soul. It is the closest galaxy to the earth in which all systems of worlds in the Orion constellation, all the thousands of intelligent races have all advanced into the soul. As each of you have come to understand through our teachings, the Christ consciousness is the higher mind. The soul is the entirety of the heart of the goddess, of the heart of the mother's presence. As the Christ is individualized and you can resurrect yourself up into that state of consciousness, so too, for the journey to be absolutely complete, is for each of you to be given assistance to pass through the door of everything and to be touched by your soul and changed by your soul. The spiritual hierarchy has decided. 3 spiritual groups in the world have been chosen. I have no authority to speak for 2 of those other groups or to name them. Yet I can say to you that the spiritual hierarchy of our system of worlds has named the students of the Radiant Rose Academy that are held under the dispensation of the Mother's love from the great central sun to be one of 3 spiritual groups to be given absolute divine intervention, all participants to fulfill the prophecies of Jesus the Christ. This has always been my goal. We've always spoken that this is the path. But I could not tell you until you had proven yourselves, until you'd come through your own initiations, until you were willing to gather as a spiritual family without dogma, a spiritual family without the values of a cult, a spiritual family in which, as any one of you advance into your higher consciousness, the influence of that advance will be felt inside the twinkling consciousness of your sisters and brothers. The decision has been made. Of the 3 spiritual groups chosen, only one is teaching beyond the education of this world. Only one is teaching the 3 activities of life. One teaches one of the activities. Another group teaches another of the activities, but full of superstitious belief. And a group that was intended to fulfill the other activity, the Buddhists, have lost their way in doing so. And so the spiritual hierarchy has named the Radiant Rose Academy the Mother's dispensation of divine love as those students who will be assisted in your realization of the 3 activities of Source, to assist each of you in the actualization of those 3 activities. The activities that have been outlined to each of you through classes, through workshops, the 3-fold activity of God. The great presence I am that is infinite. And within that infinite presence of God is the Heavenly Father and the Heavenly Mother, all masculine, intelligent principles of the universe, all feminine, heart-fulfilling, loving principles of the universe. The spiritual polarity of the infinite I am. The second great activity, I am, individualizes through its creator races. Each of you in your risen state will become the individualization of the infinite. As each of you are risen back into your higher consciousness, then it is that each of you shall earn and experience dynamic communication and response with the third activity of I am, the impersonal I am. The fabric of life that fulfills the infinite voice of God that says, I am here, I am there, I am everywhere. I am in a blade of grass. I am in the petal of a rose. I am the life that beats the heart of an animal. I am the droplets of water within a stream. The impersonal I am. The responding consciousness that fills all substance and all matter. These outlines of the three activities of God are found in those three statements. I am that I am. That is the infinite. I am who I am. That is the individualized when you have awakened, realized, and propelled yourself back into that higher consciousness. And I am what I am. The very fabric of life within animate and inanimate space, matter, substance, and form. The gift this past Easter, as Asan and I and Lito and Nada, the four of us, as we retreated with the students in Saskatoon this weekend, not one word of Easter was spoken. Not from us. Not happy Easter. We went to work. We went to work identifying more and more and more of the process that you will use to climb the ladder back into the higher consciousness. I am who I am. Knowing full well that the spiritual hierarchy was gathering all weekend, that time that is so focused around Jesus the Christ. And at 8 p.m. Central Time, for this is where we were, Jesus the Christ signed off, put his signature. I am the risen one. Jesus the Christ. And he signed the intervention that is to come to every seeker, every initiate who discovers the three mighty activities of God and seeks the journey, the passage of resurrection, to become and then to touch the hem of the infinite and to lovingly command the impersonal that is within all life. Jesus the Christ signed off on this. And if you consider, my beloved students, if you consider yourself a child of Mother, Father, God, the offspring of your own great individualized God presence, a registered student of the Radiant Rose Academy, you now shall come under the fulfillment of what I, a son, and Germaine, the three of us, all said within the last month. An unprecedented and unparalleled opportunity stands before you. And if you look out into all the things that are wrong in this world, how timely is this intervention? The continued education that will allow each of you to remove the fog and the lower mists in the mind, for you to have a practical education that you can apply. That while there is yet some fog in the mind, that you can understand well enough the lower consciousness that you have been functioning in, and the steps and the journey back into the higher consciousness. As I have been hinting recently, and anchored the roots in Saskatoon this past weekend, now it is the time for each student, this student body, and every time that we come together, whether it be in classes, in weekends, and conclaves, that we must facilitate rightful use of the intervention that is promised by entering into dynamic treatments. I prefer the terminology treatments. It is acceptable within the terminology of the consciousness that you presently use. I seek to avoid the terminology of healing treatments, because healing, a condition, is one kind of treatment. And as each of you understands through a series of treatments, hundreds of them, thousands of them, this year and next, a step at a time, a step at a time. Each treatment, you are throwing off more of the lower consciousness that is attached to you. You are moving a step at a time into that higher consciousness. You will come to love giving your life, your world, a treatment. And you will come to understand, and you have to approach it with as much faith and love, that these treatments, they are not approached from a concept of getting God or Christ to do something for you. This student body must take a huge leap in self-examination. All steps that you have taken in your awakening are appropriate. Yet when the initiate gets to a point, there must be an adjustment that is made. I spoke of this adjustment a matter of weeks ago. As I suspected, it was not met with joyous comprehension. Yet the sooner that you can move yourselves through this, that we must surrender Every concept of trying to get God to do something, whether you approach it via metaphysics, spirituality, or science, there is a gateway in each approach. And sometimes metaphors are very helpful. God has never stopped being God. You separated yourself from it. You have to get back into it, and when you get back into it, everything is a state of perfection. But that's not because you're going to get God to do something. It's because you did something. You did something. Precision, perfection. And in our treatments, you have to acknowledge this. God is perfection. God is precision. God is on the job. It's me that's not on the job. There is an intelligence and precision that charts the planets and the orbits of planets around suns into hundreds of centuries. Astronomers can chart the course of the intelligence that fills the sky. There is a science, there's a perfection to the ebb and flow of tides. The sun shall rise, the sun shall set. God is being God. Take a seed, love it, nurture it, plant it in the earth, give it water, give it sustenance. That seed can become a tree. Did you have to talk to God to make that seed become a tree? Or come into alignment and cooperate with the supernatural forces of life? They are everywhere. Even in the miracle classes last year. And yet I did not stay with it because I did not feel that leap of joy and faith in your hearts. You were flat. And so I had to move away from it. We tried it a few times. I am here, I am there, I am everywhere, saith the voice of God. And if that is true, I must be inside God. And if that is true, let me rest my body in the consciousness of God. Do you remember that one?
Yes.
The education of the three activities must continue. But also the surrendering. Am I trying to get God to do something, suggesting that God's not on the job? Am I trying to get God to do something for me that God is not already doing for everyone? If you take an individualized consciousness and make it believe something that is not true, and that consciousness believes it centuries after centuries after century, every century is 10 more veils that wrap over and over and over the consciousness that you live. When can you say? You can say it, but for a meaningful impact, for every one of you to be able to say, the I that I am is God. Pull it apart a little bit more. The I that I am is the consciousness of God. It is both within me and around me. Now, if you are unplugged, if you are seemingly living separate from that, because that I am state of higher consciousness, everything is in a state of perfection. There is an intelligence, a power, endless light, endless love. And everything that every perfect mind conceives instantly manifests. And great realms of perfection, you can place a seed on a half spoon of earth, and you can behold the life and watch that seed instantly come up into a plant, a tree, magnificent before you. Have you got it? Has it registered in you that you and the human race, the entirety of the human race, have lived in the lower consciousness? And that lower consciousness is fed by continued believing in good and evil, in two powers. And what has given roots to that lower consciousness is fear. Over the years of your spiritual education, you have become aware. You have a wonderful, wonderful intellectual understanding. But you know, even a wonderful intellectual understanding is not enough. This time forward, it's a reference point. It's the things that you remind yourself. What need I remind myself to relax? What is going to help me relax, surrender? What did I learn in my awakening? That I can review when I give my life a treatment. That treatment, you already know it. We will speak into it different ways. And it is where you give up all your fighting and battling, everything in this world. Because you know, if you battle a thing, if you fight a thing, it'll bite you back. You know, you all very well know the laws of duality. You know the power of suggestion, the power of attention, the power of intention, all used in misleading ways, in the ways of the outer world. You know these things. But you also know that in the lower consciousness, you've had good days as well as bad days. Correct?
Yes.
So what does that prove to you? It proves to you that those bad days had no power, had no law to continue. And all your education, it's to seek to bring you to the place. There is only one law. And that law only governs a state of perfection. Now, are you going to skirt in here and say, then there must be other laws that govern states of imperfection, that govern disease, lack, limitation? Yes, you're right. They're human laws. But day in and day out, you prove that your human laws are temporary. If you can be sick one day and healthy the next, the law governing health reveals to you in this world that it's temporary. If you can be poor one day and rich the next, your human laws show that they're not permanent. They're temporary. And that's the human lower outer consciousness. Oh, let's take a deep breath. So wouldn't it be wonderful to gain the resurrection, to be raised back up, to love Jesus the Christ because he gave it to you not only as a metaphor, he gave it to you as his life. To be raised back up. And being raised back up into that higher consciousness, there's nothing left to heal. There's nothing left to correct. Because all the things that appeared wrong, that appeared broken, they just disappear. You can't have perfection and duality occurring in the same realm. You can't have perfection and duality occurring in the same consciousness. It's one or the other. And the great spiritual awakening is one that leads you that there is a higher consciousness. Why would you acknowledge that you are on a great path of awakening? Awakening from what? Awakening from living in a lower consciousness where duality can give you a good day or a bad day. Duality can give you abundance and it can give you poverty. And you work hard through duality and you try to influence duality the best you can. And then something comes out that you didn't even see it coming, that you have to deal with. Of course, in this journey of treating your world, there's another challenge. I almost said it was a big challenge. And if I did say it was a big challenge, I would be buying into your lower consciousness. And that challenge is that there are little appearances and then there are big appearances. And this is much bigger appearance, so it's going to take a long time for God to fix it. It's going to take 1,000 treatments for me to get through it. These are old concepts that must be broken through. You have to go back to the basics. God is life. God is light. God is love. God is joy. God is perfection. God is intelligence, precision, power, immortal, eternal, all-loving, all-powerful. That higher consciousness, that I, what is that I? We've already identified who is I. I is God. Am God in action. Do you think, beloved hearts, that you can make this leap this year? Yes. Jesus signed off. More divine intervention is coming. Techniques are being developed at this hour to pass on to you, to use in your treatments. With joy in your heart, you spring to your feet. You enter into a decree. You have no power. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Oh my goodness, even your decreeing is participating or being limited by the duality that you find yourself in. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you see, your spiritual empowerment, the ability to say to a substance that is acting in a wicked way, you have no power. You must become risen again. That which has no power cannot declare to that which has no power that it has no power. How close do we get? Do we get and move through the false sense of self? Are you the human self? Are you the human self that is seeking to awaken, become free of the limited, choking consciousness and free yourself? He is risen. She is risen. You will not find her there anymore. She's not living in the tomb of human creation anymore. She is risen back into the higher consciousness. In the higher consciousness, there is a four-worded statement that becomes so important. I am the law, of which there are none other. I am the law. That's the law that functions in the higher consciousness. Yet the challenge, because its roots are psychological, that God is a withholding God, or the belief that you can pray and that you can influence God. If you pray and your prayers succeeded, are you suggesting that God has finally woke up and is on the job? Or maybe you shifted into an environment, you shifted into a state that was receptive, so that God doing God's job was able to show up and shine into your life. This is why a son is decreeing. And he hopes that you will make it your own mantra, lovingly serene, in 2015. To really approach this. Approach it every way you can, precious hearts. Approach it psychologically, metaphorically. Approach it spiritually. Approach it scientifically. In every single way that you can. The world is full of hundreds of millions of people who got old and tired and sad and angry because so many of their prayers went unanswered. Feeding the belief that God is a judgmental God, God is a withholding God, just feeding and feeding and feeding human belief structures. What will allow a swath? A swath. Do you know what a swath is? No. Well, it's like farmer's language. One sweep that takes care of everything. Well, we did just come from Saskatchewan, dear hearts. And in one swath can remove some of the pins of obstacles. We're going to identify the big ones, and the rest will just collapse like dominoes. God's rain pours on the just and the unjust. God's rain pours on the just and the unjust. Know ye not the place thou standest is holy ground? Know ye not that even if you are what the world calls the worst sinner, the place you stand is still holy ground, because I am here and I am there and I am everywhere. So is it God or you? This year you can break through. I well better prepare you, precious hearts, if you think you're going to have time to count the miracles, to chart the miracles, to record the miracles. You're not. Because we can treat your arm, we can treat your employment, we can give a treatment for your family, we can give a treatment for more customers, we can give a treatment for what's going on in your liver, we can give your whole lives a treatment, your entire world, your entire world. How do I know what is in my world? Your consciousness has grown. Do you know where Seattle is? Seattle's in your world. Do you know where Moscow is? Moscow's in your world. Do you know where Chile is? Chile's in your world. And all the people therein. When Jesus walked on the earth in his higher consciousness, his influence was felt thousands of miles away, but not by everyone. Those influences were felt by those who were sympathetic, those who were receptive to something greater than themselves, the self that they were living. The life of God is like a white mist without mist. If you surrender, if you declare the non-power of all the appearances in your entire world, and you declare they are a non-power because I'm awake now, and I know that these appearances could change. They can all change for the better and they can all change for the worse. I can do my best to make sure they're all changing for the better, but you never know when something's going to go wrong in duality. So I can declare the non-power, and I can understand that the human laws govern these appearances, but those human laws are based on the principle of duality. It's temporary. It'll change according to the state of consciousness that is wrapping itself around it. And if it's a heavily dense consciousness full of fear wrapping itself around a condition and activity, you might know the outcome. But are you spiritually illumined enough to understand why it is that on your climb back into the higher state of consciousness, you can say, you're not going to scare me. I know this is a human condition. I know it is an appearance. I know it can even take my life. Appearances take people's lives every day. I know that. The question that has to be asked, are you ready to stop playing the duality game and paying such a heavy penalty? Are you ready to declare vehemently within your being, I'm not playing this game? The whole human race from the spiritual hierarchy's perspective is one throw of the dice down here. It's the largest planetary casino we've ever seen. You can have a big night. You can also lose everything. Duality. This has to be written inside you. You have to declare vehemently, I am complete playing this game of duality, at least deliberately. There is a mountain of consciousness for me to climb. There's a wonderful song out there, The Climb. Might start listening to it. It's a new song. And you're here to take that climb into the higher consciousness. And as you do, you will notice that various aspects of your life are just really, really improving before others are. Oh, that's easy. It's because those aspects didn't have as long roots in fear holding them in place. They were able to break free of the human law encrusting them. Let us complete, precious hearts. I promised in Saskatoon that we would embrace a treatment every single time we gather. I will approach it from the student body perspective, a treatment for the entire student body. You can approach it inwardly. Of course, the most ideal treatment is it is silent. I will internalize the words. I will externalize. I will speak the words I encourage you to internalize. And in the many classes and weekends and conclaves this year, there will be hundreds of different types of treatments. But eventually you must understand there's only one treatment. But we've got to tame the intellect. We've got to get you to settle down, surrender, relax, lay down your sword. Don't fight the battle. And let go. But don't let go thinking God's going to do something for you that God wasn't doing a moment ago. Let go so that you can be raised into your higher consciousness where you can experience the kingdom of God. It's both within you and all around you. We got to get you into the elevator. We got to raise you up into that higher plateau. And when you look about, there is no more error acting in your world. Everything is a state of perfection. Would you like that? Indeed. Let us have a treatment. I offer this treatment for everyone in the student body and for you. And then we'll take our break. And you might ask yourself, where am I as I internalize this treatment? I would say in answer to that, watch the messenger's hand if you can. You're somewhere between here and here. You're in that area. Closing the eyelids. I awake. I am remembering that I live within the lower worlds of consciousness. Duality. Things good, things difficult, things bad, things wonderful. Yet I know that everything in the human realm is temporary. And if it is temporary, there is no law that maintains those things. It means all appearances in my life, my world, can be undone. Oh, not by me undoing them, not by God undoing them. I say to all appearances in my life because it comforts me. I can let go. I say to all the appearances of limitation in my world, whether my body, my world, loved ones. These appearances have no cosmic power or law to maintain them. They can all be undone. And so I move into my second step of my treatment. I am resurrecting. I am lifting and raising myself back into my natural higher state of consciousness. And in this higher consciousness that I am raising up into, I is God, is one presence, one power, one intelligence, expressing seamless states of perfection. Where I am, God is, and where God is, I am. There is no separation. I and the Heavenly Mother are one. I and the Heavenly Father are one. I and my own great God presence are one. And in this higher consciousness, I am one with the impersonal I am, the life within everything. A flower, a pebble, a stream. And the higher consciousness, there is but one law, and that presence of God decrees, I am the law that knows only perfection. I am lifting and rising, lifting and rising, lifting and rising into the higher consciousness of light, love, power, purity, peace, perfection. I am not trying to fix or get anything. I am gently reminding myself of the truth and the choices that I am making. I am walking a path of resurrection, and daily that path lifts me into the higher consciousness. And I am that I am. That is the truth of my being. The voice of God nurtures and comforts me and says, I am here, I am there, I am everywhere. And I respond to that voice, thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. I am coming to live in the higher consciousness where no error exists. Life, eternal, immortal. And in this higher consciousness, I acknowledge the impersonal I am of God within the very flesh substance of my body, the atomic substance of this world. I lovingly acknowledge the impersonal I am of God. I bless the impersonal I am of God that is within the very flesh of my body, the atmosphere that I breathe, everywhere present, I am the individualized presence of God that knows only perfection, fed and sourced by the infinite presence of life eternal. And all around me, including the body, is sourced from the impersonal I am, the very fabric of life. I am letting go. Knowing my body is not in, God is not inside my body as much as my body, my world is inside the consciousness of God. And I am availing, I am making my body, my life, my world available to the higher consciousness that knows only one presence, one power, one intelligence, that is a constant state of abundant perfection. I am risen into that higher state of consciousness. I seek nothing but to abide in that higher state of consciousness. I say to my presence, God the Father, God the Mother, and the impersonal I am that is all around me, thy grace is my sufficiency. I rest in the higher consciousness of light, of love. And all error disappears. Peace, be still. And one lingers, precious hearts, in the silence until there is an inner click, an inner feeling, a deep involuntary breath, like something is touching you. You've arrived. And it's time to get up and go on about your day. And I will leave you with this one thought, beloved hearts. There'll be many things in your world to give treatments to, and you can give treatments to individual things, and that is fine. But the key to a successful, victorious treatment is to take your attention off of the condition, the person, as quickly as possible. If you think you're going to give a person the treatment, you're not. You're giving yourself a treatment. So that when there are those who look to you because they know that you know, the only thing that they want you to be in that moment, they want you to be God. They want you to stop being human and be God. Quickly enough and long enough for whatever error is appearing to just disappear. Ah, the journey. and the joy of this journey. And in the world of non-error, there is no appearance that is bigger than another. God bless you. I thank you, precious hearts, for your time. We love and bless you, Mother Akasha. Hold us in the love of thy presence and don't let go. Deep breath.